Cursing to a minimum.
We are now recording. This is Charts Chat for Thursday, November 9th, 2017.
Woot.
So I just dropped the minutes from a way past meeting in. We might as well update it and go. I think the first thing that I'd like to do here is actually discuss recording of these meetings. Have we talked about that before?
We have. Most people were in favor, and we were actually wanting to do more publicize the meeting more, in which we've been doing via the Charts, Slack channel. But I don't know if there's a better way, Matt, that through like the SIG apps or putting it somewhere more public so people know that it's happening.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We can work on some of that. We'll put it up on the community site and some things like that. Some folks found it. So one of the meetings that I showed up for that others didn't, Nikhil showed up from SUSE to talk about stuff. So we spent a little time talking about his use case. So that happened. Yeah, one of the things that I was approached about is getting Helm and Charts recorded and where they're at. And the community folks said we can actually get a list for Helm and Charts. And so the meetings can be posted on a separate list around this or a video playlist. And so I'll take care of that. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
I'd like to propose skipping stand up only because I have a hard out at the half hour, and it looks like we've got a full agenda otherwise.
I agree with that.
Plus, I don't know that we have a whole lot of progress to actually report.
Yep.
So it's a bunch of these I put on here, and I put them on a while ago, so I can kind of plow through them real quick. Owner's files. I sent out an email a little while ago with kind of a proposed plan. Does anybody have an issue with me chasing after this?
No. So the one thing that I do want to couple with this is, and that's the last topic that I just put in. I didn't get a chance to respond to your email. Is figuring out deprecated, orphaned, whatever we want to call them, charts at the same time. And maybe moving them to incubator, and then they have to do a more rigorous process to get back into stable. They have to have a nominee or a maintainer and an owner and all that kind of stuff to come back. Because I think there's some charts that are just kind of there. They were put in, someone put in a few weeks of work, and then they just got left there, and maybe did not get downloaded or used ever, and have not been maintained. And I did a while back do some work to turn on bucket logging for our charts buckets. So we do have data of which charts are most used or least used. So we could start with some prioritization there.
Do we have access to that data for people other than you?
Yeah, I can publicize it wherever. I turned it on and then we never did anything with it. So I can make it available.
Yeah, my thought would be instead of incubator, because my understanding is stable only use stable features. Incubator could use it's not stable. Is maybe create a deprecated folder.
Something like
charts.
That. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Just to cull down the things that we should focus on as maintainers, and then if someone wants to take something from the zombie state into the active state, it's on them to figure out the process of actually getting up to date.
Okay. That works.
But yeah, I think that the owner's thing is great. The other thing that we might have to figure out is like a sponsor for each chart that does not have a readily available maintainer that is active. Because some charts do get kind of organic growth and organic maintainership from different folks who have contributed pieces here and there. And some of us have kind of taken that on, like the Redis HA chart right now. I'm kind of pseudo-sponsoring just by making sure that it's getting the love that it needs. So I think we should have some thing like that pins an actual chart maintainer to that as well.
Okay. Yeah, as I work through the owner stuff, I'll see where some of those gaps might be. I'll see if I can figure some of that out.
Yep.
Okay. The next thing I had was to automatically notify chart maintainers if a PR comes in for them, or come up with a way so that if they're in the owner's file and a PR comes in, they somehow know. Maybe you carbon copy that, whatever. Everyone cool with that?
Yep. Yeah, right now I think people are just pinging the maintainer that they know cares enough about their chart to move it forward, which I think we could make more automated for sure.
Then there was this one of when we bump a version and don't bump a version, which we talked a little about on the list. And it was kind of, do we keep them, can a version ever change, right? And I think what we came to was you should never change a version once it's out there.
Yep.
So my question actually then becomes, because does anybody disagree with that, first of all?
No, I used to.
Let's just always bump.
Yeah. Always bump a version. Okay. Then my question becomes, and I was looking at the sync script, and if I'm reading the sync script right, it actually builds all of the subcharts on every run and then actually puts those up there, right? And so that's another place where it's actually rebuilding a package. So it could go through and do the sync again. Am I right on this? And so it could hit a chart, it rebuilds all of its dependencies. Now, if those dependencies changed in, say, a patch version, it'll pull the new patch version in, bundle those up for the same previous top-level version, and ship it up.
It should only do what's in the lock file of the chart that changed. If the chart changed a thing in its lock file, or in its requirements YAML, then it should get those updated dependencies and pull those in. It doesn't rebundle those, though.
Does
it
dep
should
update,
only be pulling them.
Does dep update, and I'm forgetting right here, does Helm dep update rebuild your requirements file?
Yes.
So it actually does rebuild it.
That's what I mentioned a while ago in one of the last calls. We should change it to use dependency build instead of update.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually, just a bug then. It shouldn't
be places in the scripts.
Okay, then I can go do the PR for that unless somebody else wants to. But yeah, right now it does a Helm dep update, which rebuilds that requirements file and does it.
Okay. Yeah, that should not be that.
Okay, sweet. I or somebody else somebody beats me to it, but otherwise I'll do it this afternoon or tomorrow or something.
Cool, and ping me. I'll be able to review on tomorrow. Are
you working next week, or are you off again?
Yeah, and I'm on. No, right. Nothing until Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's that one. We'll fix that bug. What was I gonna say? It's just me. Well, the next one on there. Version upgrade. Oh, create and document the object version upgrade process. So Kubernetes, let me get into this one. It may not be obvious. Kubernetes supports the latest version, the last two. So right now there's 1.8, 1.7, and 1.6 are supported, right? For beta APIs, Kubernetes says we'll keep the API around for 2 months, or I'm sorry, for 6 months or 2 releases. 6 months or 2 releases. And so when you think about that, the beta APIs, when you look at the rolling versions and what charts are going to support, how do we upgrade charts? Because right now we put out there, and I only put this out there because I didn't have a better way, was to say that the charts repo supports current and current -1. So 1.8 and 1.7, but not 1.6. Because if you're dealing with rolling updates of charts, how do you deal with objects that work across 3 versions if you're only guaranteed 2 versions of support for an API with like the workload? So like with apps, you might have apps v1 beta 2 for deployment, right? You're not going to have that across 3 whole versions. You may not have that across 3 versions of Kubernetes. So how do you come in with an upgrade cycle? And then how do we go ahead and audit the charts repo to say, oh, all these ones that have, say apps v1 beta 2, how do we now say, oh, we need to go switch them to apps v1? And when do we do those kinds of things? Because when 1.9 comes out, we'll now have 2 versions that support apps v1. And we can say, okay, for those, now we'll do an audit of everything and do PRs to change those, right? How do we want to approach this kind of thing?
So it's a lot of work on the maintainer side to proactively go out and do this. The approach was, so I think it's still running, we had CI against the latest head of Kubernetes proper for a subset of charts. And that was going to increase over time the number of charts that got in there. And those were charts that had tests as well. And so the idea was you could know ahead of time. Right now, we know what will work in 1.9 for some period of time. If anything goes red there, then we know we got to change something at some point.
Yeah.
And I think another kind of stream that's been happening for me is that I want to start bundling chart updates. Right, I want to be able to do a branch, for example, for a major update or a minor update of a chart, and put a few PRs in there, and then roll that out, rather than one minor version bump per incremental change. And that would allow us to kind of bundle these future forward changes, so that we could hit the button like, okay, this version of this chart, this minor bump, is now to get us 1.9 and 1.8 support, and then hit go when 1.9 is released. So I don't know if anybody else has thought about kind of how to manage the future chart updates kind of issues. But we do have CI running, so we would at least be able to be notified in some cases, and that could increase the number of cases, of when things will break in the future versions.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. In fact, the window between 1.9 and 1.10, we have like all of that time to upgrade all of the charts before 1.10 rolls out and the beta APIs are gone, and then all the charts start breaking there. So we do have a small window there of time to do that. So yeah, I like your idea of feature branches though. Do you think we should have, what kind of pattern do you think we should work for that? Should we have like a branch name stable / like we should have a common naming convention so we can understand what the heck's going on?
Yeah, I've gotten only as far as knowing that I have really wanted to be able to, as a chart maintainer, for example, for Jenkins, I see that there's 6 things in flight. I want to take an hour of my day and bundle those all together, get them all right, merge conflicts and everything, and then push one major version, rather than what I do now with a lot of charts that have multiple things in flight is merge version 0.3.1, then 0.3.2, then 0.3.3, and really most people are only going to see 0.3.3 anyway. So it's kind of strange for folks. They go from 0.3.0 to 0.3.3 in one day. So that's what I've seen. I haven't really thought of a mechanism that this repo can provide that scales well with the number of charts and versions that we have. I think convention on branch names is about as good as we could do right now. And then how do you tell people sending PRs that that's where they should go? Unless you do that ad hoc to begin with, and then hopefully the convention spins up.
Okay.
Or you could automate the branch creation. The next version of this chart is going to be blah, and the branch is just sitting there already. And when it gets shipped, it deletes that branch and creates the next one or something like that.
Yeah, this whole feature branch thing is actually something that Kubernetes Core wants to get into, and Brian wants to look at how we can do some more there to bundle things together. I can go see if I can track down any of the work they're doing there, because they may have some ideas, and I'm curious how Tef Infra is going to look at that. So I'll poke those folks on it too.
Yeah, definitely my preference would be to, my preference would be to do whatever is in Kubernetes proper and leverage whatever work they're already doing or conventions that they're already doing.
Okay.
I'd love to do that.
Cool. That's where I was going with that. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that? I like where you're thinking.
Yeah, it's really just been a kind of feeling that I've had, like when I sit down, I know that I want that thing. I haven't thought about the mechanism though. So any discussion around that that we can spark up would be great.
Okay.
I dropped a couple of links into the chat here to examples of how we are kind of anticipating network policy API version changes. Granted, at some point, we can remove those, both the conditional and that template, because it'll just be, V1. So, that is kind of a, a corollary or, to using feature branches or rolling multiple updates into a single version.
And I kind of like this to do capabilities detection, because for some of the things like the move from apps v1 beta 2 to apps v1, right? It's actually, as far as I know, it's just a promotion of the API rather than a change. And so we could have a really small header that detects which one and could work there.
And with capabilities detection getting rolled into was it moving client side or being able to spoof it? There was an issue on Helm to be able to spoof capabilities so that you could do a debug dry run or a Helm template.
Yeah.
And specify your API version.
Gotcha.
And then of course having your templates render according to the capabilities.
I just took a to-do down because I'm curious about that since I'm doing the CI stuff to see. Because one of the things that I wanted to do was actually run Helm template on the Circle CI stuff and generate the output and then run that through something like kubeval or some tool that can do validation against the Kubernetes API version and make sure that whatever we're spitting out as the default is valid. And so I was thinking about something like that. So that would be good if we get into capabilities. I'll dig into it. I like that. I'm giving myself lots of work.
I like that.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else on this? No. What was the next one on there? I added some of these a while ago. Helm required values. What is this? Okay, so there's an issue, update maintainers to use GitHub IDs on kubelego, and a test is failing. And it says, this is, Adnan wrote this, this is failing because we don't deal with Helm's required values. We should bring this up again during the next charts chat. Adnan
yeah, it's because right now, if a required variable is missing, rendering fails. Not deployment, but rendering. So as we run it through the linter, in the case of kubelego, I used to provide a default value for the email, but then people weren't bothering to read the README and then change that email address. And the upstream project was getting complaints that people weren't getting notifications when their certificates expired. So we commented out the default value. We don't provide a default value, and we mark it as required. But the side effect of that is that tests fail, and we have just kind of been shrugging it through.
So the approach that the other charts that require stuff in order for things to function properly, even if this for the upstream, is to just not actually deploy the thing. So if you can have a fake email in there, but it just won't deploy the deployment or whatever, right? And then people won't be able to use that, so they'll have to look at the notes and say, oh, there'll be a huge warning in the notes saying, hey, we didn't actually deploy anything for you because you didn't set this thing. When you set this thing, use this command --set lego.email and Helm install or Helm upgrade, and then we'll actually deploy this thing for you. So that's, I think, worked well enough for the other charts. I think Ghost, GitLab, a few of the things that require a host name in order to properly work have done that kind of blocking behavior. Yes, we'll let you install, but really it's just a warning that you need to do this other thing.
So you said Ghost is one of them that has that?
Ghost, yeah, I think that's the one that I've referenced the most as far as that pattern.
Do you know where the pattern's implemented in there? And is it in the deployment?
I believe so.
Okay. Now, the reason I'm looking for is this is probably one of those things that we should document somewhere so we can point people to. And so I'm just thinking about where it's at for an example so we can document it. That's all.
If it doesn't have that variable, don't do the deployment. So the interesting thing here is the reason why the Ghost needs it in this way too is because you'll likely want to, it still deploys the service, for example. So then you get the service IP, you get the service IP, make a host name mapping in DNS, and then re-upgrade when it's all configured.
Do you think something like this should go into the Helm best practices documentation, or is there a place in our repo that would be more appropriate because it's for us?
Yeah, so I have a KubeCon talk coming up about the patterns we've seen in this repo, and it's kind of strange because I think there are, like, for creating a public chart, there are different best practices than for creating, maybe there's a superset of best practices than creating a private chart. So I think we should start to get our own list of public chart repository best practices in our repo, like this one.
Okay, then I'll start that unless somebody else wants to do it.
I can take that because I'll have to catalog these things either way, so I'll turn it into a doc.
All right, ping me when you've got it, and I'm happy to review and take a look at it. No, this is good. Thanks. Yeah. Mike, you raise your hand?
Oh, ping me too.
Oh. All right. I'm going to keep going here because we've only got a few minutes left, and there's 3 bullet items. I'm going to see if we can get through them all. So there's one was the PROW can automatically close old issues and PRs that have not had any activity on them. Should we see about getting that implemented? It warns you first. It warns first, and then it comes back.
Okay. We already have the stale policy, which is, I think, 7 days, no activity with basically on the pull request owner, and then we mark it with stale. 7 days after that, we can close it. So if it implements something like that, I think automated is better than not.
I would just grab what they're already doing and say, do it on this repo too. Yeah, okay.
I'm up with it.
And Vic, did you want to talk any more about deprecating?
Let me get the data out there and get a simple report to say these are the bottom most, and say here's the 10 bottom most, or I think we can detect it from Git anyway, and try to present in the next charts chat and see what we want to do and how many there are. We might find that there's only 2 or 3 and we just do it and be done with it. We might find that there's 20 and we need to actually do a lot more work.
Okay. Then I guess the last bullet item here is, as a contributor, how to find an advocate for a stream of changes to an incubator chart.
Yeah, hey guys, this one is me. So my first time joining, and this is a question that I've had. I want, like, for example, the Kafka chart is something that I've been looking at in the incubator channel. It looks kind of stale. It's something I want to, help pick up and make a bunch of improvements to. And this kind of relates to the first thing you guys talked about as far as like an owner's file goes. So like, what are best practices as sort of a new wannabe contributor?
I think this is a good start. Definitely. I think in the past, people have generally gone to the charts channel and pinged around and seen who's around. Others have just submitted a PR or a set of PRs, and those have eventually gotten attention. If you're going to just take ownership of something that's stale, I would make a best case PR, like this is the end state that I want to get to, and say this is a work in progress. Okay, I'm done. I'm happy to be a sponsor on the Kafka one. That one is of interest, and I just don't have time to actually do the work. So similar to what I did with Redis HA, I'll just kind of be there to make sure it's moving along. But if it has really been stale, I would just make it the best it can be and then submit a single PR rather than multiple streams.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Cool.
So that's what we have on the agenda. We trucked through a massive agenda and we've got 2 minutes left. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about? I was just trying to keep us on track to get through everything. Thanks everyone for doing a wonderful job on that. What else?
I just wanted to say that plugging back in on reviews of PRs, and as has been my approach in general, I sort by least recently updated and not assigned, and I just start burning down on those and just looking at them and just trying to garden as much as possible. So that's my general case. The other thing that I do is kind of sponsor particular charts. Redis HA, Kafka are now at the top of my list. Concourse has been in the past. So that's just my approach. If people do, find themselves with 30 minutes or an hour of time, I think it's a really good way to just get the queue down, which is my anxiety rises with the size of the PR queue. So that's why I take that approach, and it tends to get me basically 20 PRs an hour of closing, for better or worse. Some are just closed because they're closing. Some are merged. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, same here. I'm as is my perennial hope. I'm hoping to actually burn through some PRs this weekend. I got a couple in today already, so yay me.
Awesome.
Good job. Good job. Yeah, I'm actually looking at this going over the last month. We've closed 136 PRs or merged 136 PRs, and there've been 95 new ones. So we're actually improving. But on the issue side, we've closed 15 issues and opened 56 new ones. But I can never get myself into the issues because I'm trying to keep us headway on the PRs. And that's what got me to think there's a lot of old issues. Can they be auto-closed? Will that help me get wins to help get on top and know what ones to actively attack?
We've always had a problem with the issues queue. And we've basically just had to focus on PRs just to not get buried there. So.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for leading the meeting, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Maybe someone else will be up for doing it next time. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful week, or talk to you all next time.
All right. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Thanks. So long, everyone.